It was called Valley Professional, and when I was injured, it was all young actors and athletes, and I went to school because they used to come to the rink and teach us, right?
Right,
Like
the rink,
set
yeah.
teaching.
Like you
So
were
I
saying, yes.
actually went to the school, which was basically us, 4 storefronts, and I met Alfonso Ribeiro, Ricky Schroeder,
Oh,
Tracy Bell, I think was her name, who was on Mr. Belvedere, and they took me to Alfie's Soda Pop Club, which was all for actors, young underage actors. And Alfie, someone should do a movie about it. That's where I met all of my friends. Pruitt went to that school, but that the Alfie was the only adult there, and he was what we would call back in the day a troll. I don't know if that's a PC word now,
no,
but
whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
but he basically was trolling for young kids,
Yes, yes,
boys and
exactly.
girls,
We get
and
it. We get it.
somebody should make a movie about Alfie's Soda Pop Club because it was a big deal in the 80s. The Coreys were there, everybody was there of that generation.
Wait. Wait. This is so much. Let me just back up because I believe I'm going to have to. This sounds silly, but I think I'm going to have to cut this into. I'd like to. Two mini volumes, and I promise it won't be confusing. So I get this now. What brought you into these? This different celebrity arena that you were just talking about. What was the transition of the stopping of
Well,
the of the of
I
the
was
yeah.
I was injured,
Okay,
and I
yeah,
was
right.
going to make it. I was in a cast, and I didn't want to
Oh,
sit. And I was living at my coach, the great Barbara Rolls, who put me in it.
oh,
And I didn't. I was in Southern California,
yes.
and I didn't want to sit at home all day in a cast.
Oh,
So
oh.
I drove to the actual school so I could be around people, right? And it was
Okay,
the first
okay,
time in
okay,
my whole life since I
okay.
was 3 that I wasn't ice skating.
Oh
So
my
that's how that happened.
God.
Hmm.
Brian, since 3?
But when I was 3, it was just fun and games because growing up in Chicago and the North Shore,
Yeah, yeah.
that's what you did. You just took ice skating classes. It wasn't competitive,
Okay, okay.
but I showed a lot of talent. And then the Fossies, who had 4 Olympic gold champions, Dorothy Hamill, Peggy Fleming,
Yeah, yeah.
Robin Cousins, and John Curry, they scouted me and they had me come to the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs when I was 12 to start training with them.
Wow, wow, wow. And then at that age, when you say you started training, how old were you?
I was 12.
Oh my God, Brian, you and I have been at it since we were like toddlers.
Yeah, we were dancing for our supper. Being a professional athlete as a child is very similar. It's the same lessons you learn because when I was injured and then
Yes,
they're done with you,
yes,
like like I was named to the junior world team.
yeah.
I was, being groomed for the 92 Olympics.
Oh my God.
Did I ever receive a letter from the United States Figure Skating Association asking how I was? Did I ever? No, it was like shoot the horse and get the next one in.
Oh my
That's
God.
and
Oh
so
my.
I learned that lesson very early,
Yeah,
which is a great life lesson to learn, which I'm
yeah,
sure you did as
yes,
well.
yeah, yeah.
And it was all an accident how I started doing commercials and going to Japan. And the rest of my
Oh,
life just sort of unfolded
yeah.
because where I grew up is where all the John Hughes is from my hometown. So
Okay.
16 Candles,
Yes.
all those 80 Ferris Bueller, all those movies were shot in my hometown.
Oh my
So where I
God.
so where I grew up, I was supposed to be a lawyer or a doctor or or a stockbroker, but
Yeah,
I knew from a very young age, and when I came to California,
yeah,
was the first time I felt, wow, I'm at home. I feel alive here. I feel safe here. I feel glamorous here.
yeah.
And all my weirdness, I didn't know my weirdness was actually gay, but I knew that I was different than other kids,
Oh,
and
really?
that was the yeah. I had no idea. I slept with girls till I was 18.
Me
Um,
too.
yeah, yeah. And it was actually funny enough. The United States Figure Skating Association is rotten. They were anti-Semitic, and imagine the whole world knows
Oh
or
my.
assumes male figure skaters are gay. They are completely, when they give you media training in
Yeah.
those days, they told you not to say it. Like, look at poor Brian Boitano.
Oh my.
He got outed by Obama. You know, Rudy Galindo was better than anybody, and they wouldn't let him have it. And finally, it was so obvious he became the first gay national champion. But that wasn't until 1996. And when Todd Eldred, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name
Yeah, yeah.
now. People say I look like him, and he skates quite like me, but he was our champion, and he is a commentator,
Yeah.
Johnny Weir.
Yeah, yeah.
He was ridiculed and called Johnny Queer, and if you notice, the skating establishment would say that he would need to tone it down.
What?
They are rotten.
Oh
to
my
no end.
God. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, wow, wow. So we're talking Brian, from what it sounds like, it's as cutthroat, if not more, than parts of the film industry.
Well, and also there are like stage mothers.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there was only, when I skated, 3 or 4 major training centers in America. So the mothers would leave home with the children. Mine didn't, because they had other children.
Yeah.
So it was great. I lived in a house with a widowed woman who took in male skaters only.
Wow.
So I was the youngest. So I lived with the French champion, the German champion, the Swiss champion, the Italian champion. So I was in a very international training center, and I got to learn so much about the world and about different cultures. From them. They really mentored me as a young person.
Wow.
Which was great as a skater and as a young man. So, but skating mothers, I didn't have a mother to protect me. And they are like, you know, stage mothers. They'll do anything. They'll cut your throat. You know what I mean? They're the worst. So
you're kidding.
Very similar. But you know what? It gave my last coach, Barbara Rolls, who was 3rd in the Olympics.
Yeah.
She always would say to me, you were the one that got away, but you had much bigger things to do. She said, you got all the lessons from being a national competitor and on the United States team that you would have gotten the same as going to the Olympics. But she said skating lasts for a very short period of time.
Yes.
And it impacts your life for the rest of your life in a very positive or negative way.
Oh.
And I'm with you more than you're with your parents. And it's my job to teach you life lessons as well as skating lessons.
Correct.
So I was very, very, very lucky with my coaches.
God, I guess you were. Wow. Because that wouldn't, in that climate, that kind of guardian angel, I mean, is like your lifeblood, right? You're in different places. You're not at home. You're everywhere, and you're so young.
And traveling the world competing, but I was very lucky because Barbara, where I trained at the Broadmoor and previously with the Scott Volds, who taught Nancy Kerrigan, she wasn't even on the scene yet. She came later.
Yes.
They pitted everybody against each other. They wanted everybody to have an extremely competitive experience. My last 2 years with Barbara was the first time when I was friends with my competitors, and she also encouraged us to be friends with Mr. Nix's kids.
Yeah.
You know, he taught the famous Ty and Randy.
Correct.
You know, many champions, and also Frank Carroll, who taught later Michelle Kwan and Christopher Bowman.
Good God.
She encouraged us, and they were all friends, those 3 coaches. They all taught out of 3 different rinks in Southern California, but they wanted us to be friends and to encourage and support each other rather than want to kill each other.
Rare, huh? Rare, right?
Extremely, after the next experience I had.
Wow. Okay, I jump over the place, although I got to tell you, Brian, you know what? I don't give an F within reason how long you want to talk to me, because this is just too valuable an interview. That's why heads up, it may be like two separate in one night. Anyway, so to jump like completely off the rails, because that is completely stuff like I had no idea, and I had seen two of those birthday montages, and it's like, oh my God, we knew this, not that, Brian. Anyway, so do you remember the first? And I don't want to be rhetorical, but I'm just going to tell you. In '93, you knew of me, of course, because I was like that wild, loud, horse-faced, tacky drag queen all over who used to be an ET. But the first time that I was able to literally sit down, mostly stand up, and just you and Jimmy were so warm. You were the first people that like treated me like a normal drag queen who was worth like talking to, or at least looking at. And it was at Pat's place off Fountain, and Lance was there, and Pat was there, and you were there, and Jimmy was there, and you were in the the dinette, and I came in with Adam Kaufman, and I was standing there in front of you, and you had blonde hair and smudgy eyes, with those eyes and that smile, looking like you were 19. And Pat was, gracious, of course, always enough to, give me a little something. And Brian, you and Jimmy, my having only known essentially as a chat distance, it changed my whole confidence in drag. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but that was the first time, and I've been in love with you ever since, sweetheart.
Oh, that's A, so sweet, and B, I do remember.
You remember?
Well, of course, because Lance, I'm going to sidebar and
yes,
tell you
please.
about Lance
Yes.
first, and then tell you about that.
Yes.
So I met Lance at a club called Boys and Girls on Lexington and Vine. It was owned by Brett and Chris, and then they went on to open the MK of LABC.
Okay.
In the old Misha's.
Oh, right.
And it would have still been there. Chris OD'd the night before, and they lost their liquor license. Anyway,
wow.
And everyone who I met there, I'm still friends with to this day. But I met Lance because he was go-go dancing up, and then he changed it. He kept changing it. It was a very 60s thing, right?
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah.
And then he came up to me and he said, "Who are you, little minx?" And I knew exactly who he was. And then he said, "And you just stand there and you have a face that sits there like a sofa." Because I was nervous. I mean, I knew who everyone in that room. There was only about 100 people that fit.
Okay.
And it was all movie stars and fashion, and like one table would be Timothy Leary and Barbara Leary, and another table would be Janice Dickinson and Herb Ritts, and another table would be Matthew Ralston. They were called the Brett Pack. And Sandra Bernhard and Richard Gere and Jodie Foster and Madonna in this tiny little room. They used to be Au Petit Cafe, which was a speakeasy in the 30s across from Office Depot.
Yes.
So Lance gave me his number, and he said, "Call me, but not in a salacious way."
Right, of course.
So we became really good friends, and he taught me the rules of survival in Hollywood. And knowing Lance Loud, you might find it funny.
Yeah.
But he said to me, "Honey," you know how he'd always say, "Honey."
Honey?
He goes, "I don't want to know what you do in bed, but don't take any fluids in any holes."
Yes.
He goes, "You look 12. You're a pedophile's dream."
Oh God, isn't that a terrible word to use? We're sorry.
Always have backup with you.
Yeah.
And if somebody bothers you, first tell them they're older than they look older than your father.
Yes.
If that doesn't get rid of them, tell them that you're 15 with a fake ID. If that gets them real excited, say, "If you put your hand on me one more time, I'm calling the cops. I'm underage."
Cops.
And the last rule he told me, he goes, "I know you love to party and you lose track of time and you end up in the Hollywood Hills. But if you find yourself, they're not having you there for your titillating conversation.
Correct.
Trust me on that."
Yes.
And he said, "If you find yourself the last one at the party and the wolves are moving in, tell them, pick up the phone right now and call a car service, not a taxi.
Yeah.
They'll never come up here.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I'm picking up the phone and calling the police." And I lived by those rules, And, nothing bad happened to
No,
me.
no.
What
Yeah.
would be considered today,
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
Too happened every night, someone grabbing your ass
Yeah.
or your junk or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, exactly.
But nothing bad happened to me because I was taken in by Lance, and I was taken in by the whole George Michael crew.
Yeah.
Kathy Jung,
Yeah.
his
Oh,
girlfriend.
Kathy.
Everyone thought it was the beard, but
Kathy. God
she's,
bless her. God bless her.
he's considered what would be fluid now, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
they all those older people took me in, so and I don't know why. I was just a kid from the North Shore of Chicago.
Yeah.
And they saw something in me, like Steven Saban once said to me, "You're going to be something. You don't know what it is, but we can see it in you." And they took great care of me. I never had any of those horrible things happen to me until much later, and those were social things that happened that are very typically Hollywood, that everyone in New York and outside of Hollywood says existed. I never saw that until my 40s. Anyway, but to go back to you.
Yes, yes, yes.
I remember that specifically because Pat would curate those parties so well, and she would have the mix. I mean, remember, it would be like Julie Newmar,
Yes,
Lily Tomlin, and Louis Waldron from the Warhol. He did Cocaine Cowboys.
Yeah, yeah.
The fake DuPont twins.
Oh my God, yes.
The greatest mix of just freaks and whoever, like J.D. Doherty from the Patti Smith.
Yes, yes.
Harry and Holly Woodlawn.
Yeah,
and
yes.
Always fabulous. And Pat treated everybody, even if they were fucked up, Pat treated everyone.
Everybody.
Like she chose to ignore all of that. And she entertained like a grand 1950s hostess because I really believe that she's the one that instigated that whole An American Family, because when she raised her kids, I think that she wanted out of Santa Barbara, and that's how she became the editor at Random House, and she was known as the punk rock den mother in New York. But she treated everybody well, and Jimmy and I learned very early on in Hollywood that love may come to you, and that you may learn something from somebody that's completely. I learned from Brett Wickey from that club, and that was my rules always.
Yes.
Was to mix a room, black, white, gay, straight.
Always.
Drag,
Always.
Everything. Because you know what? LA is not a walking town.
No.
So if you put everybody in a room, you may learn from the person that you are the most scared of or revolted by.
Yes.
And I was scared of drag queens.
What?
That's a whole other story.
Yes, we'll do another story. Oh my God, Brian, tell me that. I mean, what?
I will tell you that story in a second.
Yeah.
But going to you is
Yeah.
that we had met. You were always kind to me. I had no idea that you were a child actor.
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
no idea who, in quote, you were. And I never cared because remember in the 80s and the 90s, we didn't care about things like that.
No.
We thought, are you fun? Am I having fun
Yes.
with you right now?
Yes.
Okay, great. There are people from those days, I still don't even know their last name.
No.
You know what I mean? There was no computer.
No.
And you had to make that decision right away.
Yes.
And you were always fun and dazzling.
Oh.
And a little bit of trouble in your eyes.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But no, trouble meaning fun. Like getting up to fun.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You also were really intelligent.
Well, thank you.
And I found that dichotomy really interesting because most of the queens that I had met were just so, can you turn me up in the monitor situation?
What?
And you actually were a listener.
Yeah.
And you were a great conversationalist.
Oh, God.
You were really interesting. So, of course, when I saw you outside of the club, I was like, oh my God, I get to actually talk to him. I'm going to say him.
I know.
Because that's what we used to. We, sometimes called queens him or her that day.
Yeah.
But I was like, I get to talk to her finally outside of a club with blaring music.
Oh my God, you're kidding
And Jimmy
me.
and I we always were very tough at the door with people, extremely tough.
Yes.
But once you were inside, everybody was the same because we never wanted to let a bad apple in because it would ruin the bunch, right?
Yeah.
So once we always wanted to feel like it was a basement party and kick off your shoes and have fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how it was. So when I saw you, and I really loved Adam,
Yeah,
and I
lovely.
knew Adam from
Yeah.
Drina De Niro.
Yes,
and when
correct.
I saw you guys, I thought, oh, this is going to be fun.
Oh, you're
'Cause
kidding me.
I always wanted to have fun because, you know, I knew that my boyfriend, he was an actor.
Yeah.
And he was Latino, but he was getting the best parts.
Yes, he was.
He was in all like studio. He was Mambo Kings, Havana,
Yes,
Awakening,
I know.
Article 99.
I know.
You know, White Squall.
Yeah, he was.
You know, all of them. And, you know, I am going to sidebar for a second.
Yeah, please.
And I think it's very important for this
Please,
conversation.
please,
in the time
please,
zone,
please.
Because a lot of people kids don't understand this.
No, they don't.
The reason why I believe, this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
Because you and I grew up, you're a tiny bit older than me, so maybe you were around for the first more present for that, because you lived in Hollywood, I didn't.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was smack dab in the middle of the first and second wave, right?
Yeah.
And every year on World AIDS Day, the list has gotten to 50 people, but my 3 best friends and my boyfriend were dying in the hospital at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was a child,
Yeah.
I had to go out and promote, but also deal with him. He was starting to get sick.
I know.
He died in October when I was 26.
Oh my God.
In 1990, I think it was 1995. It's hard. I have a lot of stuff my brain doesn't remember.
No, yeah.
But the reason why there was so much, I mean, we lived through New Wave, Northern Revival Psychedelia, Britpop, Industrial, Glam Revival, Metal, all of it, all of the art, all of the music. The reason why there was such an explosion was because people were creating at a breakneck speed, because it could have been their last day on Earth, and a lot of the times it was. And there was such an urgency to create. And that's what people don't, when young people say, well, why did so much happen in such a short period of time?
Right.
Well, that's why.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
In my humble opinion.
Yeah, because we lost an effing generation of creative brilliance.
And we lost all of our mentors, and then we had to make it up as we went.
Exactly.
You know, we were all in ACT UP, we were all in Queer Nation.
Yes.
And we fought for rights, and the last thing, I'm not going to get on a soapbox.
Yeah.
But you know, you and I still have 3,000 less rights than everybody else, because in some states we can still be arrested for sodomy.
Yes,
and
correct.
we do not have a National Protection Act. And at this point, I don't care anymore about some stupid pronoun.
Yes.
And some child schooling me.
Yeah.
Because you know what?
Yeah.
I blame all of them for Trump, because they gave the right so much red meat about nothing.
Yes.
And you know what you should be doing?
What?
Get in the street like we did.
Yes.
And protest, because your phones don't do anything.
No.
Show up and be accounted for.
Yes,
and
yes.
That's my little 2 cents
Good.
on that.
Good. And
You know,
what?
I was always a political person.
You always,
I would organize, because we used to have 10 fax machines,
Ah.
and we would send faxes out, you know, and then around 92 we started using a computer, 93. But prior to that, you know, I organized that big with Vag Davis, me, and Alexis.
Oh my God, Vag! Oh, you're bringing back memories, Vag.
Well, we found out that Clinton was coming.
Yeah.
And it was during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So remember, we had everyone meet on the corner of Santa Monica and San Vicente.
Yes, I do.
We blocked the cars.
We did.
We blocked the cars. And me and Alexis and Homer, who was a dancer at Club Fuck, were on rollerblades.
Yeah, excuse the word.
We stood in front of the cars and we wouldn't let them roll. And then they went all the way around. I think they finally made it to Highland, but we made it impossible, chanting, "Don't ask, don't tell, Bill Clinton, go to hell." So I always used my power as a club promoter for for the advancement of human rights.
Well, I will interject here since that is so close to the bone, and you may or may not know this real quick because it's like, a year's worth of discussion. My husband, Michael, who you know of or
Yes.
met or whatever, is actually a Master Sergeant First Class E7, which is basically almost the highest security clearance you can have, less one unless you're like in the CIA. So he was in Desert Shield. He prepped Desert Storm. He, again, like I said, being a Master Sergeant, was over platoons, and his specialty was recon and weaponry. So my husband, in short order, because he was a declared practicing homosexual through rumor, he was discharged dishonorably after having been stripped from a master sergeant to a private first class for, again, being, according to the Pentagon, look up LA Times, a practicing homosexual. And Brian, he gets no veterans benefits. He has
I've
no.
been following your
So
story.
you know all that. Yeah.
It's outrageous, and it makes smoke come out of my ears.
Good.
It's hard because just to jump in on that.
Yes, please.
You did a post that you had moved to I believe the Netherlands.
We were
right?
trying,
And
yes.
then, okay, I thought you had, and then all of a sudden your husband got really sick.
Yes, correct.
You nursed him back to health.
Correct.
And I was following that byline, that very, very, very closely.
Yeah.
And I know more. I mean, I know what that was like, and I had to go out every night and act like a clown, like nothing was going on,
Yeah.
while Jimmy's mother
Oh
was
my God.
living with us.
Careful.
And taking care of him for a year.
Careful.
When he was really sick and in bed. So I know what that's like.
Yeah.
It takes every ounce. So
Thank you.
kudos to you. And
Thank you,
please
love.
take care of yourself.
Thank you,
and
love.
Take care of him.
Thank you, love. Thank you, love. Thank you, love. This. So we already have 2 volumes in so far. So if you don't mind, let me switch gears. Tell me, Brian, especially apropos of what you had just mentioned about relocation. What the hell? Why Merida? How did you? I mean, we know firsthand the trials and tribulations, to say the least, of relocation outside of the country. And so for you to decide to keep home out of this country, where did it come from and how did you do it? And why are you so damn happy?
Well, I'm going to tell you quickly so that
Yes,
whoever's
of
listening
course.
to this can understand.
Yes.
By the time I was 20, I was one of the biggest club promoters in LA.
Yes, you were.
And my club, Cherry,
Yes.
became such a part of pop culture that it was mentioned on many TV shows like 90210.
Yes.
And there was actually a documentary. It was
Yes.
reality TV.
Yeah.
There wasn't even a name for that yet.
Yeah, just
It was
real
called
quick.
Documentary TV.
Just, I just want you to know real, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I spent, I couldn't help but spend 5 minutes before you came on telling them actually how Cherry and why actually altered the trajectory of all Los Angeles nightlife, at least henceforward. And then how that changed into other things that you had things to do with. But please go ahead. But I am.
So what's interesting about
Yes,
that
yes,
comment
yes.
Saban said that I personally did with Cherry more for rebuilding after the riots than anybody else did. But that club, people used to say to me when I was doing clubs, when are you going to get a real job? And I'll just fast forward. When I went back and did a nightclub 13 or 14 years later,
Yes.
I stood in the DJ booth and I saw people smiling and dancing. And I thought to myself, I do community services.
Are you kidding? Oh,
so,
of course. Excuse me.
Just to give you a very quick overview, and it'll get to you.
Yes.
From clubs.
Yes.
Then they started using celebrities on the cover of Vogue, so
Right.
it wasn't like there were no fashion parties in LA, as you know. This
Yes.
was the Outback.
Yes.
So
The
all of a
Outback.
sudden, I'll tell you one day how I got the Madonna party.
Okay.
The story is hysterical. I was in the club business. I had no bank account. It was just outrageous how that happened. But then I had a lock on every major fashion client, from Armani to Hermes,
Yes.
Dior, Rick Owens,
Oh,
Harry
Hermes,
Winston.
my favorite.
It just goes on and on and on. But one day, Vanity Fair, Vogue, I worked for 10 years, Margiela.
Yes.
One day, a friend of mine said, "Why don't you produce movies?" And I said,
Freak Show, I'm so sorry. I didn't get to Freak Show. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The movie people are impossible.
Yes, yes.
And nothing ever gets done.
Right.
He said, "Well, you know everybody. It'll be easy for you."
Yeah, yeah.
So I looked around, and I was hating what I was doing. I was working 16-hour days. I had 1 million children working for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was the human resources. I was there. It was just, I was like, this was, so I went to James to get, it was a prequel to Party Monster, and it was a thinly veiled version of his life. And
Right.
James, St. James.
Yes, of course.
He was a celebutante first in New York. And
Oh,
then
for
stayed at
sure.
the party too long and he taught Michael Alec.
Yes.
And became a club kid, and basically was his first book, Disco Bloodbath, became about the murder of Michael Alec.
Michael Alec, yeah.
That brought down nightlife in New York.
Correct.
But he's adopted and comes from one of the wealthiest families in the South. So it was a story of him. It was a children's book.
Yeah.
It won every award. It was called Freak Show.
It did.
American Librarians Association. So
it did, yes. Amazing film, you guys.
I called him, got the option, got the writers, did an IFCOM agreement, attached Drew Barrymore, and she got financing with Trudy Styler's company, Maven.
And Trudy Styler directed. I mean, there's so many. Okay, go. I'm like, go.
And the wild thing is, I thought, well, this is easy. Well, 6 years later.
Yeah.
Then I found out kids didn't bring the money. That's why, for the listeners out there that don't know,
Yes.
every actress has a price tag on their head for foreign sales, right?
Yes.
And even if you know them personally, if you go behind the agent's back, you'll get cut off.
Oh boy.
So you had to wait, and we had Leslie Mann, and we lost her, and we had Sarah Jessica Parker, and then we lost our director based on timing. So Trudy came to me and said, "May I direct, and I'll bring Bette Midler and Trigger." And what a wonderful thing, since Bette Midler it wasn't even Gay Pride. She was at the first Gay March, Gay
Yes.
Liberation.
Oh boy, I'll bet.
In the bath. So how incredible was that story? So I did all of that, and I had promised myself that I wouldn't be the oldest one left at the party in Hollywood.
Oh, stop, Brian.
And I was heading. Giorgio's became a cultural phenomenon.
It did.
It lasted 6 years.
I touched on that. Yeah. Go ahead.
It was, name checked in songs and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And I, wanted to make more movies.
Yes.
I am still currently pursuing making a documentary on the first trans rock and roller who was the second largest selling act in New York City, and the Andy Warhol superstar, Wayne County, now known as Jane County.
What are you working about? You're working on that?
I've been working on that. We were financed twice and lost financing twice. It's really tough, as you know.
Yeah.
The industry is crazy.
Oh, but story, Brian, that story.
Oh, it's incredible, that story. But
anyway, yeah.
I just kind of want to stay on
Yes.
here. So I said to myself,
yes.
I don't want to be sitting in the chateau. Honey, do you want to come to my event? Do you want to be in my movie? For me personally,
yeah,
I did everything and more. I never had a plan.
Yeah.
And I as they say, I climbed Mount Everest to see the Valley of the Dolls.
Ah!
You know what? I started really seeing in my 40s for the first time. I used to pride myself on my friendships that were 30 and 35 years old, and I started thinking, are they just transactional? Were we ever friends? And I started questioning all of those things, the bigger questions in life, right?
Really?
And and I started chopping and really making my circle very, very, very small.
Did you
I would
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
very. And I would only go out to Giorgio's. I stopped
Right.
going out completely.
Right.
And I became very internal.
Yeah.
And I moved to Palm Springs and COVID happened. And then the minute COVID ended, I said to myself, well, I know about 100 people in Merida. Everyone's moving there from New York and LA and London, and there's 125 galleries. I came down, and the filmmakers, David Ebersol and Todd Hughes, who did the great documentary on Pierre Cardin and Trini Lopez.
Yes,
and
yes.
They gave me a great party, and I always said to myself, and anybody that knew me well, whatever happened to that Brian Rabin? Oh, he's in a white linen suit living in Havana or Mexico.
That
was always the plan. I was never going to be a lifer. And
right.
I want to have, I want a new book for my last quarter of life.
Are you going to write it? Are you ever going to write one?
Well, I started to, and it's a little confusing.
Excuse that.
I could go the Truman route because I know where all the bodies are buried.
Yes.
But I could thinly veil that. But you know what? I never outed anybody in my clubs. And I believe that I was paid not only for my talent as a producer to produce events, but for my discretion.
Always.
So I decided not to do it. Because I was going to do a thinly veiled story.
No, you
can't. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do a coffee table book of Giorgio's and maybe a coffee table book of the 90s, because I don't really have any photos, but there were the photographers from Detour.
Are you
Planet
kidding,
Mama,
Brian?
And do it as an oral history.
Yeah. Oh, yes, yes. And are you gonna do like a book for Cherry too, please?
Well,
no.
Actually, you're going to be the first person to hear this. Mike Messick has been asking me. He thinks it would be a great idea to do a Broadway show, because what you touched on with Cherry, you know, I hear from people on Instagram all the time. Gay, straight, cross-dresser, drag, trans. That club changed my life. It was the first time I felt part of a community.
Yes.
And that my freakishness was, I could be 100% of who I was, and was applauded for that. So he has been begging me for years, and I'm actively looking for someone to write the book and to produce it.
Oh my God, and then make it a Broadway show.
Exactly.
Oh, Brian, you are relentless with us. I mean, we're going to be like having the best times of our lives. God forbid anything should ever happen to you or I. I mean, you know, to some of us, we can die happy because of you, man.
Oh, that's, you know what? That means everything to me, because I used to question a lot. Was I an artist?
Oh,
did
man.
I make anything important?
Oh, my God.
What is it that I did? And I've answered all those questions.
Okay, good. I hope so.
And I'm okay with all of that stuff. And I realized I did create art.
Yes.
And my curation of people was art.
Curation of people.
And how free, you know, in Hollywood, nobody introduces anybody to anybody, right?
Yes.
I would say, oh, you would be great love partners. Oh, you would make great design partners. Oh, you should make a movie together. Oh, you should use her. That was always what I got joy from. And then I would stand in the DJ booth and watch people. And that's what made me do clubs for those 11 or 10 or 11 years.
Really?
Is just standing in the DJ booth and just seeing the pure ecstasy from people's faces, going into the fantasy land I created for them to forget about their problems. You know, and I always made sure, you know, there was never too many agents or PR. I never wanted it to be a place where people were, I always wanted, if you were talent or famous
Yeah.
or just a great kid with great dreams,
Yes.
I always wanted everyone to feel safe and the
Yes.
same.
And we did, Brian. We did. All the way to Prague. I mean, Prague. Well, I mean, you name it. We're like 92, 93. There was this, okay, acceptance, right? But I felt safe where I was in like 3 directions. Do you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Because you'd be dancing in drag next to LL Cool J.
Yes.
Next to, you know, some heavy metal, next to like Slash.
Yeah.
Next to
Yeah.
whoever.
Yeah.
And nobody is batting an eye.
No.
And in any other club, because clubs, you'd go to the Cat House and see the heavy metal people, or
Yeah.
you'd go to Club Buck and see the industrial
Yes.
people,
Excuse the word. It was a club.
But when you would come into one of my clubs, I would pull the cream of the crop of all of those crowds, put them into a blender, and believe me, I spent most of my night throwing people out.
Yes.
If I wasn't introducing, because I wanted everyone to feel like, I wanted people to feel like they were the most important people in the room.
Yes.
And that anything could happen in that night.
Yes.
That their dreams could come true.
Yes, and you know what mine was? Hello, and you probably don't know this. One of mine was I actually danced on one of your speakers.
I love it. I love to hear things like that. That just made me so happy.
Oh my
Thank you
God.
for telling me that. Because, I don't know very many things that went on in my club.
Mm-hmm.
I used to call it the morning report. Because
oh my God.
I was dealing with the door, the bar, the lights, the sound, the DJ.
Yeah.
So I would call 7 or 8 people. I would always call Janelle. Who came in, read the guest list to me. And then I would say, who was naughty? Who left with who? Because you're also the last person. You're not out of that club until 2 hours or an hour and a half later.
No.
So I never knew what went on half the time. So I would call and I would say, I'm calling for the morning report.
Yeah.
It would be about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then I would get all the tea from the night before.
Oh, stop. Oh my God, what tea? Oh my God, there's not enough oceans for that kind of tea in one night. And you know I'm right. You know I'm right. Cherry was a force of nature.
It really was, and for the fact that it stayed burning red hot, and you know what? It still holds the record for the longest running one night a week party. And Giorgio's, it's the last week before COVID. I had Mary J. Blige, Beyonce, Jodie Watley, and Jay-Z up in there. And you know what? People talk about Studio 54, and I'll tell you a funny story. Jelly Bean did New Year's, and if people don't know who Jelly Bean is,
Benitez,
he produced Madonna's first record.
Yes,
and
correct.
He DJ'd at Studio 54.
Yes.
And prior to 54 at Funhouse, he was part of a handful of DJs that really started disco, right?
Yes, correct.
In New York City.
Correct.
And now he's having a huge moment again with his daughter and playing to like 100,000 people in Ibiza. So I brought him out and he said to me, Brian, I was watching you I know you since you were a kid from the Palladium in New York, and I was watching, I've always known your career, and I was watching.
Yeah.
He goes, do you realize that you've always been a first adapter, and that and I want you to know this, he said, you were the first person to open a disco club, and I will tell you that I believe Tom Ford did his disco collection based on that club.
Yeah.
And he goes, and now, I work for Glitterbox, and they were coming from London, and your club was known worldwide, and now they're doing like 50,000 people, a night in Ibiza for the summer. And he goes, and you're that guy that did things for the love of it, and you never thought about the money, which is true.
It is true.
Did.
It damn well is true, man.
So,
man.
now I've got to bank it, in my mid-50s, but and I can do that because you know what? Whenever I get boohoo and I think about that, my closest friends say to me,
what?
You never once ever said to me, I want to be rich.
Never.
You never once said that to me. You said I want to make the greatest club, or I want to do the coolest party. that was never a goal.
Yeah.
Making money, if you put your mind to it, you can do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm doing both right now.
Yeah, and you know what?
Trying to marry both those things.
You know what's so rare? Maybe, put a fine tip on this, and or move, because there's so many things. Is you were also the one that was there for us folks, and you know who I'm talking about, in 92, 93, and you never left that sensibility of, it's not the right word, but camaraderie. You know what I mean? Like, you saw us through like that really tough, tight crack in drag and nightlife that we didn't have before you, Bryan. I had to cruise straight after hours clubs before you. Well, I guess that's funny, right?
I mean, yeah, because it's a different time zone.
Yeah.
Now they sashay around malls.
Yeah.
If we did that, we would have been beaten to death.
Yeah.
But, I was an outsider growing up. Where
Yeah.
I grew up, I was bullied.
Yeah.
Also, as a figure skater,
Mhm.
I was a weirdo because I liked English music and
Yeah.
things like that. So I was an outsider in my world that
Yeah.
I grew up in.
Yeah.
So I wasn't outside looking in. I was already inside.
Yeah.
So that's why when I came to Hollywood, like from the South Bay where I was training,
Yeah.
none of it made me flinch because I felt right at home, and I created places that I would wanted to go to.
Exactly.
Because there was Power Tools.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
There was those clubs, that Helena's.
Yeah, oh
that
yeah,
cool
of course.
underground,
Yeah,
but they
Helena's, I hated
weren't
Helena's.
mixed, and they weren't exciting
No.
in the mix, and they weren't for everybody.
No, they were not.
They were exclusive to a certain type, and yes, they were filled with celebrities.
Yes.
But they were not, in my book, they didn't have that special
No.
edge.
No.
And they didn't have
No.
the people that really make the
No.
party.
No.
And the people that people are slightly nervous around.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
I love. That's one of my specialty acts.
Oh, yeah.
Putting a socialite next to a drag queen.
Yes.
And guess what?
Yeah.
They're best friends.
They're
by the
best
end of the
friends.
night. But at the beginning of the night, they're scared that socialite's never been in that situation.
No.
before.
No.
Now, 30 years, it's different.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think I had a big part in that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'll go so far as to say is that you sort of maverick that. And just side note, honey, please remember Helena's. Anyway.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
She lives in Puerto Vallarta.
I know, and listen, God love her. It was just not my favorite place in the 80s, but whatever. So, I mean, oh my God, let's just try to maybe wrap up volume 1 or 2.
Okay.
I want to know, how are you loving where you are viscerally? Living.
Because I am just Bryan.
Yeah. No, but I mean, how is it like, what does it breathe like? How is it feeling where you are?
Well, I'll tell you what it feels like.
What?
What I read about New York in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I was too young to be there.
Yeah.
Everybody here is making art.
Really?
And some of it's shitty and
Yeah.
some of it's great. There's 125 galleries, and there is all the cool kids from Mexico City, because it's so expensive. They're all moving here and making bands.
What?
And guess what I discovered?
What?
So the people I bought my home from, I live in a home, a colonial from 1790.
Okay. Whoa.
There are seven siblings, and 3 of them still live in Merida.
Yeah.
And the one brother is called Jorge.
Yeah.
And he introduces me to his son. Then he introduces me to his daughter.
Yeah.
And then I see a backlit, very voluptuous clickety-clack come through the front door before I bought the house.
Yeah.
And I take one look at her. They introduced me. because there's a lot of Mayan juju here. You know that I'm so
yes.
far down.
Correct,
A lot
correct.
of people just speak Mayan.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
And they believe in, like, the American Indians, the Bodacious, and the third sex is,
Yes.
you know,
Correct.
a trans person.
Native,
So they
yeah, correct. Correct.
Right, they introduced me to their son as a third sex in Spanish, and I take one look at her, and she has long fingernails and no eyebrows, and I thought, So I said, I would like to, when I buy the house, keep the gardener, the cleaner, everybody that, you know, because it's 10,000 square feet and a quarter of an acre, and I'm in the middle of the first Mexico barrio, La Ermita.
Oh my God, Brian.
And that's the borough, you know, that I live
Yeah.
in. And that's like having a quarter of an acre in the East Village.
Yeah.
So this woman shows up. She's quite young. She's like in her maybe early 30s. And she calls herself Aqua. And I said, where did you get that name? And she said, I can't remember the name of the Herrera, the third sex boy. Let's just say his name is Hector, okay?
Yeah.
Hector named me that. I'm a drag queen. I said, were you born with a vagina or not? She said, no, I'm female. I said, well, that's really tired. Call yourself a female to female transition. She goes, but I'm in the house of Herrera. I said, excuse me? And she tells me that Hector has the abuelita, the grandmother.
Yes, of course.
Sewing up all of the looks. She's got a whole scheme going on. There are a lot of drag houses here, and they have drag battles.
What?
And the head of the house, and having the grandmother sew up all the costumes.
Oh
and
my
she
God.
showed me her number, and so I slept till, because I can't stay up that late anymore. I slept till 2 and went out to a drag battle at 3 a.m.
Oh my God.
And let me tell you, it was like going up to Harlem in the 80s or Esquilita.
Oh my God.
They were as serious as a heart attack, and I couldn't believe it in Merida. So Merida is a city of 1 million people, but there's so much art and culture. They have a world-class ballet and opera. And I found out, because there's the architecture, all these colonials, plus the main street, the Paseo, Mateo.
Yeah.
All those homes are museums now. And I thought, why was there so much money here? Well, I found out in the turn of the century, from the 18th to the 19th to the 20th century, that they sold the most rope in the world before plastics. They grew sisal here. So they were the richest city in the world.
What?
Who knew? Yes, Merida.
Wow, Brian, you're blowing my mind. Whoa.
And
whoa.
The real decision is there's no crime here.
Really?
The cartel, where I live in Centro, it's all the old houses.
Yes.
But we're all in what they call Norte. There's 3 malls, you know, with the Gucci and the department stores.
Yes.
And there's a lot of what they call privés. They're like Palm Desert, gated, like, planned communities. Apparently, what is true, I have found out, is the cartel puts their grandmothers, their mothers, and the children
Get
there.
out of here.
So this is a no-go zone,
Get
this whole city.
out of here.
There is no drug dealing, there's no crime, there is nothing that goes on here. Nothing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's the safest city in South America, Central America, Mexico, and in the top 2 safest cities in America and Canada. And I'm not going to go too deep. But I knew what was coming in America.
Yes, of course.
Because there was a 400% rise in anti-Semitism.
Yes.
And when that happens through history, not just World War II, then comes in fascism. And I was involved in a hate crime, which I'll tell you in another story.
Yes, please.
In Palm Springs.
Yes, please.
Well, it ended badly for those millennials, let me just tell you that.
Good.
And the police, I had them arrested for a hate crime.
Yeah,
But that was my final decision.
Yeah.
And I've always had impeccable timing. I know when to arrive to a party.
Yes.
And I know exactly when to leave.
Yes.
That's my story.
Right.
I'm sticking to
And and so this is a ridiculously selfish question, but how are the prices down there, real estate wise?
Well, insane. I mean,
No, yeah, I
this is,
guess.
I still consider it's 20 years since it started to really get developed. There's still 33% of the colonials that are in ruins. I bought what was called a livable colonial.
Okay,
All original pasta floors, but it
okay,
has the kind of plumbing that you have to switch on and pump up to the roof and all of
right,
that. But
right.
I bought, and I'm going to build on top of the main casa and knock down the casita so that
Yeah,
it's just one big yard of pool
yeah,
and then build a
okay.
gorgeous pool house. But my house, I got, it's over 10,000 square feet with a quarter of an acre for 430
No, you didn't.
American.
No, you did not.
Yes. Yes, I did.
Oh, oh my God, oh my God. We've got a third volume. Oh my
And
God.
everything is cheap, like redoing this whole house with, building an upstairs with a
Yeah,
huge office and a
yeah.
bedroom
Oh
and
my
a
God.
garden and all that, and the pool, and building a big, huge, on the other side, there's two doors. The other side was their store, which is what a lot of people did. They would open a store. I'm going to put a master bedroom
Oh
and a
my
big suite and all that.
God.
To redo this whole house is going to be 200 grand. A pool is about $12,000
Are you
American. And
freaking kidding me?
in America, it's $100,000 for a pool.
Of course.
The only thing that's expensive here
Yeah, yeah.
is food is quite expensive.
Okay.
That's why I go out all the time, because the Yucatecan food is like Mexican food you've never had. There's 40 different moles. So I go to the local cantinas.
Yes.
And taco stands.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you go to the grocery store, we're so far down that everything is expensive
I'll
because it
bet.
needs to be shipped down here.
I'll bet.
And things like dishes, plates,
Yeah.
microwaves. And
Really?
Those things are expensive.
Okay,
But everything
okay.
else is, and the dollar is very strong to the peso.
Okay. Oh, yes, of course. Right. Okay. Wow. Wow.
So that's that.
Wow. Wow, Brian. I mean, we've gone 4 times longer, and I don't give a flying F. This has been so exciting. I mean, this is like, this is why I started this thing. Anyway, so will you promise me maybe at some point a volume 4 for 20 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, because you know what, we could talk real quick.
No, I want to. Yeah, I want to. That's
But,
what, yeah, you're right.
But thank you for even having interest, and I appreciate it. And it was wonderful to talk to you after all these years.
It has.
And send my love to Michael.
I will, dear. I will.
And I hope I gave some value and some humor and some insight into, what life was like and what life is like now.
Yes,
and,
yes.
You
know everything. It's been everything, dear. I mean, I'm not even. I'm about, I think, 19 minutes into it. I wasn't interviewing anymore. I was just drinking ambrosia of our life and your life and how it dovetailed, and then it flew over the oceans, and now there you are. And so I love you dearly. I hate to bring this to a close, but yeah, I know. But Brian, you'll never know. I know you can imagine, but let's not go there anyway.
Well, listen, sweetheart, you were a delight, and I felt very safe on the phone with you, and it was wonderful.
Okay.
And we will talk very soon, and I promise we'll do part 2 and part 3 and part 4.
Okay, love.
Soon.
Okay, love.
All right.
Okay,
Have
love.
A beautiful, beautiful weekend.
I will.
Love to you.
I love you.
And big kiss.
A big mwah. Thank you,
Bye,
dear.
darling.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Oh my God, you guys. Well, we're about 3 times the size of our regular show. So I hope that you've hung up. I mean, not hung up, but hung in with me, guys. And the excitement shows. what can I say? This is the kind of show that I want to have 15 times a week, and I love everyone else that does my show. But Brian and I have a special connection, and forgive me for going quadruple show. And guess what? I consider yourself, I don't know, lucky to be here tonight, as I was. I'm gonna have to flip around our little lineup because anyway, you gotta hear this. Everyone's gotta hear this. So I love you. You know that. I will be jumping around a little bit. You'll probably maybe get a clip later or whatever, but I am so glad for this, and I'm so glad you were here with me for this. And what can I say? I'll see you guys. Bye.